date is October 19th, 2017. The time is 6:34 p.m. David Champy II. Rob Collins.
Here.
Geary Ciccarone. Ed Comeau.
Present.
Stephen Bailey.
Here.
Bill Zadie. Rick Charette. Dianne Smith. Tim Stratus.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, if you decide to select an alternate, we will have a full quorum.
Yes, we need. Can you please sit on board? Thank you.
Yep.
You ready to proceed?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we've called to order, roll call, appointment of alternates, public comments. See no public, but does anyone want to make a comment as public? Okay. Announcements, correspondence, and mail. We've got Convene magazine, it looks like. It'll be wherever such things go. I guess in there. There wasn't anything else? No emails or anything like that?
Okay, so there was a handwritten note from the archivist. There was a request for a series of minutes by Mr. Peckham from 2008 all the way through 2009. And he did not have them in the archival records. So I went through digital files and I was able to track them down and provide them to him.
Okay. Any idea why? Was that was during you were here at the time?
I
That
did not-
long ago, or was that before you?
It was actually a little bit before me. I
Okay.
actually started in October of 2008, but I was able, over the years, what I've been doing is tracking down old records, and I put them in chronological order and organized them, so that's why I have them.
Okay. Were any minutes missing?
No,
Awesome. Were you able to get sort of the full accounting of all the minutes, including all the attachments that should have been there? Because I know that sometimes a paper document might get attached, or were they all being scanned back then?
no, they were not being scanned, and there were things that when I went through some of the hard records in the past, there were things that were not organized properly, let's put it that way. But as for those particular records, I have no idea. Most of my time was researching and tracking them down and finding them and sending them out. In some cases, virtually in all the cases, we had drafts that were also in the computer, which really should have been destroyed. So we had some extra material as well.
Okay. So what you were able to piece together, did that get delivered just to Mr. Peckham, or did it also get in the hands of the archivist?
I sent it to the archivist, and because he was the one who requested of me, he let me know what it was for, and he's the one who forwarded it to Mr. Peckham,
Okay, but he's got a copy of them as well?
to my knowledge.
Okay. If a request like that came in for that time from then to now, would we have everything? Would it all be in binders and the way it's supposed to be?
I'm actually surprised that those weren't in there, but because I just started, I may not have realized at that time that I was supposed to, at the end of the year, supply the archivist with all of the minutes from the previous year. So I may not have been aware of that at that time because they just started. So from that time, it should be all, because what I do is at the end of the year, I put them all in one doc. Actually, I don't even do it by year anymore now. As soon as we have an approval, I sent a copy of the approved to the archivist. I put them in his box.
Okay. So we think that this, if there was a problem, it's been solved,
Yes,
at least as far as the planning board can handle it.
yes.
Okay. And that was in place from the, I mean, was the end of the request that you got covered by that? Or did you have those in the binder with, you said 2012 or something?
2008 to 2009.
Okay, just those 2 years, okay.
Yeah. So I had no hard copies. I'm instructed to hang on to hard copies for 1 year after the end of the year. So at the end of this year, I will hang on 2017 copies till the end of 2018, then I destroy them. But like I said, in the meantime, as each one is approved, I send a copy to the archivist.
Could you reach out to the archivist and just make sure that he thinks he has, like, that you gave through 2009 and as part of this request, sort of that he thinks he has the more recent years?
Okay.
Just because it'll be easier to find those now than 5 years from now,
Yes.
right? You know, just to make, just make sure there aren't gaps, because somebody could do a 91A request, for those, and that should be easy to fulfill, right?
Yes.
Thank you, George. Was there anything else that, in terms of correspondence?
No, that's it. And I I didn't think of bringing that because I did bring it to the chairman's attention before he left.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
If a member of the public comes in between, whatever the business hours are for the office, they're supposed to be available. Do we have a book or a binder? Because I noticed we have like the selectmen's meetings minutes here. I thought I saw a planning board here.
It's there,
It is. Yeah, so they are available when somebody comes in.
yes.
But that would only be, I guess, the last year or so?
It would actually include all of this year plus all of last year, so 2016 is also in there.
So presumably if somebody requested something older than that, it'd have to come out of the vault. And so it would require somebody who had access to the vault to get that, which is, I assume, at least Ginny and at least Craig, the archivist, right? I'm not sure if anyone else.
Yeah, but I don't know if, even though they both have access to the vault, I don't know if Ginny is authorized to be able to access the archive records.
Okay. Anyway, I think to answer your question, the recent stuff, in theory, someone could get immediate access to, and something older would require a little bit more intervention, but presumably less than 5 days, right?
Well, it's not really the 5 days. That would be if somebody puts a 91A request in. But if the statute says that it should be available to the public when they enter the building to examine it, I'm just assuming it should be available. I don't know if you're going to have a library of binders from, 1793 all the way up to today. I don't think so. So.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want to, right? Because those older documents should be kept in a controlled environment so they last, right?
Well, I'm in a copy.
Do you think we should be doing something different than we are as a town or as a board?
Well, I believe that if a member of the public comes in to examine the records, it should not be difficult. Now, if it's, if they're asking for minutes, they're going back 10 years, then, they gotta be told we need time to go get them out of the vault, but they should be at least maybe yearly looked at to make sure we have them, so we know where they are. That's probably what the archivist was looking for, so we have it in the vault in case we're challenged on something.
Well, it sounds like a question came in from a member of the public, but I know you have an interest in the government records, right? I'd encourage you to go talk to the archivist and if you want to understand what we've got and what he knows that we've got and what he's not sure whether we have it or not, from all the boards and all the commissions and everything else.
For me, I like processes. I'm sure you do also. I would like to see something in place where if a member of the public comes in to make a request, that there's an actual way to do that. You know, instead of just having just an email or a verbal, perhaps there should be a form or a process where you fill out a form, so then the people that hold the minutes have time to go get it, so there isn't this pull. There's a process, a clear process. Maybe we need rules of procedure for that, but maybe at the selectmen's level, maybe at every department. I just think it needs to be visited, that's all.
Would that be governed by the selectmen? Would they have a process put forth for their minutes? Or a standard that's set that all the committees need to follow, which we would follow? I mean, it seems like this would be something that would be pushed down to us as far as the rules of maintaining these documents.
So, maybe,
Yeah.
but we don't work for the selectmen.
Right.
We have different duties and responsibilities in selectmen, but we are a peer, you know,
Yes.
of the selectmen, right? So, it
It
doesn't,
seems like there should be a document policy that applies for all of the committees within town.
that would be reasonable, right?
Right.
I mean, then each committee doesn't have to invent it on their, take the time to figure out what the law says and invent it on their own, or something like that.
Yes. So,
But somebody has to control this. I think it probably, the selectmen control the budget for the vault, and
yeah.
they probably control who has access to it, and so I think it would be a natural thing for the selectmen to provide some leadership on,
Absolutely.
but
Whatever that may be.
but they can't tell us what to do.
No,
right?
obviously. No, but I would imagine some guidance would be there.
Yeah, they can offer support for us, but I don't think they can force us to use it.
Right.
But they probably can force us to follow the law, whatever the law says, at least the minimum specified by the law, so. Anything else?
No, that was all.
So you're gonna follow up with the selectmen?
Most likely. I mean, they follow the statute, but I have to make sure that since we're a separately elected body, that we're also, that if we have a rule or a procedure or a policy, then it should support the statute, and we should be making sure that that we're functioning the way we should.
Yeah, so I think that if you look at that and find that our rules of procedure either are silent or are wrong, or, you know, we can and should probably fix that, right? The administrative assistant's duties are laid out pretty specifically in there. I think that'd be an obvious place, the obvious person to have the responsibility for doing the records properly, and you know, I'm not sure if George wants to weigh in or not, but I mean, it's, you know, I guess the question would be, you know, in your opinion, do you think what the rules of procedure says for your duties is complete enough and clear enough that if and when you ever leave, that the next person will have good guidance to do the right thing?
You know, I did until we just mentioned this, I'm not so sure there's anything in there. As a matter of fact, I feel quite confident that there's nothing in there that says that upon approval, all minutes should be submitted to the archivist. You know, I don't think this in there. That's a good question. I'm almost positive it's not in there, as a matter of fact.
George, could you suggest to the chairman that something related to record keeping and the rules of procedure be possibly on the meeting for next month? And if he does one run, I mean, I think you should just, you know, come ready to talk about what procedures you actually follow, and you know, why you follow them, so that, you know, and maybe we'll end up with suggested language in the rules of procedure.
Because, Mr.
Thank
Chairman, there is a records retention law, which the minutes would fall under. So any policy any board has in the entire state should follow that statute, so.
And do you think that in case that is on the agenda for next time, do you think you could come with, you know, at least which RSAs those are? Which RSAs are relevant?
Sure.
So that we can look them up and talk about them if the chairman decides he wants to.
Yes, sir.
Thanks. Okay, anything else on records, which was actually under correspondence and mail? Okay. Review and possible approval of September 21st, 2017 minutes. You want to make a motion?
Yes, I make a motion that we accept the September 21st, 2017 minutes as read.
Anyone want to second that?
Second that.
The motion has been seconded. Any discussion? Okay. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And I abstain. I was not here. You guys could have been eating pizza and drinking beer.
It's on film, you weren't.
Okay. You ready to move on, George? You ready to continue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. New business, discussion of public hearing to amend the master plan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I had mentioned last week about putting out a public hearing notice at the beginning of this process to do the master plan, and then have it, each meeting recessed, or get a continuation motion to continue it. And I said this in order to allow the public, full disclosure that we're working on the master plan, and that they are invited to come from the beginning of the process, not just after, we finalize the major details, but be part of all the details. I don't know if we took an actual vote on that, but I think that'd be important to do it, because I don't think it's been done before, and I think it would be a good idea to draw people in.
One question I have on that is, in practice, you'd have a public comment section at every meeting, sort of, I think what you're proposing, but it's a public hearing that's been continued, right? So, our agenda has public comment beginning and end of the meeting. The difference is that we don't advertise in the paper that we're going to have a meeting like we do with the public hearing. But that public hearing would only be advertised once, presumably. If it's one that's going to get continued. So what's different? How is your proposal different than our public comment period that we have at every meeting anyway?
the fact that it's officially posted in the newspaper. So there's no question that the Brookfield Planning Board is working on the master plan, working on it from the beginning, public comment about the entire process, their survey forms, anything that we want the public to be involved in. I'm just trying to try to do it from the absolute beginning, and that would be with the official method of a public hearing, and then making that consecutive through the process. Because I think eventually, after the first 2 meetings, maybe people won't necessarily show, but I think eventually they're going to realize, well, wait a minute, they're working on the master plan, and they'll realize that, we're doing it.
So, but that would only show up in the paper once normally, right? You'd do that once for the public hearing, you're saying continue it. That would mean don't re-advertise.
I don't believe you would have to, we'd have to check on it.
No, we wouldn't, legally, we wouldn't have to,
Correct.
but you also wouldn't have the benefit of getting in front of people in the newspaper. So, I mean, if what your goal is to get more exposure by having it in the newspaper, we could just figure, we could just do an announcement in the newspaper, right?
What, every single month?
Maybe, I don't
I don't
know.
know how much that would cost. I was just thinking the cost. I wouldn't mind that either. I'm just,
Well, I mean, if what you're proposing is get in the newspaper so people know we're doing this, is one shot gonna be enough? I don't know.
how much does it cost if we put one in the newspaper every month, is it cheaper if we have like 6 in a row rather than just one?
I've never questioned the newspapers concerning bulk advertisement, which is what you're basically saying. I doubt it. So far, what they have there is by the word, how much they charge by the word. That's about it. And the average has been, for each advertisement, has been around $130.
For one advertisement?
Yes.
Wow.
But for $500 or $600, we could cover the next, 6 months of meetings, right? Or, $600-700. I mean, we could, if we thought that was useful, we could try it and see if by putting an ad in the week ahead that we get people here. Then we're like, okay, that was worth $130 to get 10 people here.
Yeah, and the initial one only can be the bigger one to tell everybody what's going on and why we need them here. The rest of them after that, just short blurb to remind them that we're doing this. So we wouldn't need as many words. So it may be a cost savings there.
And the other reason why I thought of doing it this way is I've seen in the past in other towns, when they do their master plan, they have the public hearing way after the fact of all the work that was done. And then the public sits and says, well, we want this all changed. We don't like how you did this. And they have all these suggestions, and then you're off going back and reworking everything. So if we open the process up, and I've never seen it happen before, where it's the entire process is opened up all the way from the beginning to the end officially, then we're pretty much covered. We're trying our best to get as much public input as we can and constructing the master plan from what we've heard from the public. That way, at the end, of course, we can still change it at the end, but I think we could at least say that we've started this process from the beginning. Should have been here.
Yeah, I hope we all would want as much public input as we can get. So, was it last night? There was a presentation
Yes.
next door.
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I saw on Facebook, sort of the picture, room full of people.
Yes.
So how did they get a room full of people that we can't even get the board to show up?
Because it's fun to learn about old houses. It's not fun to work on a master plan, I suppose.
I'm telling you, pizza and beer make it fun. Anyway, yeah. Was that advertised in the newspaper? Was that just on Facebook? I got an email.
It was in Grand State News.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. And I got an email from the website
Yeah.
as part of a news announcement.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's anything else ahead of time.
I kind of got the gist, a lot of it was word of mouth, because there was a lot of people who were either involved in the Historical Society who were there, or there were homeowners who were there, or they were a bit curious, which is why I was there, so.
Yeah, it was pretty much people from in town, I believe.
Yes.
It was just my opinion, or my, just what I thought. If, I don't know what anybody else thinks about doing this,
Well,
official.
well, whether we do, keep it alive, and have part of it every meeting or not, I personally think it's a good idea to do a public hearing up front, and like you said, hopefully people will show up, but if they don't, then they can't say that we didn't try. And I think we would want to not just put it in the newspaper, but also put it on the Facebook page and make sure an email goes out through the website, and use whatever word of mouth we can generate among ourselves, so. Yep.
Did the tax bills go out yet?
No.
They didn't, so I would think that would be a good way of at least notifying people.
Well, yes. My wife is doing the newsletter, so, and she's looking for, she's looking for each committee department to add to that newsletter, so that's a perfect opportunity for the captive audience. So she is actually looking for input from the planning board for that, as she is soliciting all the other departments.
I think we will, yeah.
And the town, what your wife's working on is, it goes out with the tax bill.
It does,
Okay.
yes.
If we cover all angles, we're bound to get some people.
So is somebody from the planning board providing her with?
I ultimately probably will.
Okay.
But she's solicited Dave for a statement.
Okay. We should just make sure wherever that statement is, that includes
Master plan.
something specific about the master plan, and that we're going to be working on it every single meeting,
Yes.
and that we demand public input.
Demand.
Yes, yeah, yes. Strong.
Strongly encouraged.
Yeah.
What's the date, the deadline?
I think it's November 1st is, I believe she was saying. She's been working on it every weekend, and,
It's coming up.
yep, she's getting pretty antsy to get it done.
And I don't know if that requires any kind of a vote to do that, I don't know, I guess.
To put it in the newsletter?
It would, yes. Well, in the newsletter, and also if it's in the newspaper, it's gonna expend money, so I would assume that it should be a vote.
I don't think the newsletter would require,
Oh, the newsletter I don't think requires a vote.
but I think the expenditure probably would.
We could wait for more board members to come if you wanted to do that, Mr. Chairman, I just,
I'm not the chairman.
now you are.
Acting
yes.
chairman.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll entertain a motion, but if there's a motion, I'd suggest that there be a specific date and time in it. And, I guess one question would be, do we think that we're gonna make progress on this fall? In the next couple of months? I mean, the holidays are coming up, and we're gonna hit our, getting ready for the March ballot season. Do we have zoning changes queued up? I think there's at least one, right?
I don't know, but I was going to add, Mr. Chairman, that the last day to post and publish notice of first public hearing, if a second hearing is anticipated, will be January 11th.
Okay. So we have November, unless we have a special meeting, we've got the November meeting. The December meeting, well, the November meeting is we're Thanksgiving, right? That we're on a Thursday now, right? Thanksgiving's on a Thursday.
16th, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah. I think the following week is Thanksgiving, is that right?
Thanksgiving will be the, let's see, the 23rd.
23rd, yeah.
But our-
Oh, so our meeting would be a week before.
Yes.
Okay. And then in December, we would be on the 21st.
That's correct.
Right, so, I guess the question is, when are we gonna start the master plan work in earnest? I mean, we've sort of been talking about it for the last 3 months, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the state of the survey questions is. I wasn't here last month, unfortunately, but.
I think Dave is going to rework some of those, or rewrite some of those, or something like that, and how we were going to present it or something.
Yeah, he did have the copy of all the,
Yep.
all the survey questions. Do we have our own copy?
No, not since the amending of it, but we do have the original copy, and it will be in the minutes for August.
Oh, Mr. Chairman, since we don't have a full board, would it behoove us to delay the discussion also until our next meeting? And that way we'll have,
Maybe. I mean, the reality is that when we meet monthly and like the December meeting is probably a bust just because of the holidays, it's hard to build momentum, right? Our next meeting is November, right before Thanksgiving, and then it's gonna not be third week of January that, we probably have another meeting where we get everyone here and and potential participation from the public, so. My inclination would be to, unless we're going to say, oh, let's really work on this and start meeting every other week or something like that, I'd say maybe hold off and maybe be planning to, I'm not the chairman, right? I don't decide, but maybe be thinking that, okay, well, January, we're going to really start in this in earnest or something. But I'm open to any kind of motion somebody wants to make if somebody wants to do something sooner, so.
I had hoped that we could have put some type of survey in the tax mail out, but apparently the postage is not gonna work, so that was next, so.
Yeah, and you wouldn't want people to throw out their tax bill because it came in and looked like junk mail, right?
Depends how soon you want to get the survey completed, because then, you have a captive audience in March. Maybe that's the goal, is to get the survey out in March at election time, polling day. And then we're just working up to that. And, the newsletter would be an opportunity to solicit for input for the meeting. And then, as you said, it's a difficult time to gain momentum, but we don't really have a full attendance here to really, with gusto say we're going to go for it, in my opinion, so.
Okay.
It sounds like we have a lot of broken avenues to come into this, to get this thing moving, that need to be dressed up first. Got to get these things in order, and then, once we're ready to rock, we'll do it.
I think Dave has good focus on the survey from, I wasn't here last meeting also, but the previous one, we had a very good working session. I feel like there was a lot of momentum for that, which only just needs just some fine tuning as we go forward. And maybe, we'll have that nailed and we can distribute that in the beginning of the new year. And then that would maybe carry some more momentum for us to get more people involved. I don't know if we're going to get people here for next month, because we're kind of disjointed the past 2 months as far as the focus, but
Yeah.
I
Okay, so it sounds like we have a consensus that we're not gonna schedule a public hearing yet. Is that fair to say? Okay,
It'd be nice to have all the information at hand first.
yeah. Does anyone have any other thoughts related to master plan before we move on? Okay.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, see, I knew it, I knew it. Go ahead.
Well, I was just thinking that if we start this in January, what's the cutoff date for getting warrant articles in? Isn't it January 2nd? Or is it February 2nd?
So,
George is the master of the calendar.
so.
Depends on probably whether it's a petition or not, but.
So, yeah, as far as petition from the public, that's December 13th. Last day to accept petition zoning amendments. As far as the board, January 11th is the last day to post and publish notice of first public hearing if a second hearing is anticipated. If not, then it would be January 22nd.
The reason why I bring that up is I'm trying to think, if we work on the master plan and we come up with changes in the zoning because of the work on the master plan, then we're gonna have to create warrant articles, but it wouldn't be next year, it would be.
You would need the master plan. I would think you need to figure out the master plan first and say, okay, well, to be consistent with the direction we just decided on, these things ought to change. So it'd be like a year from now, that at the earliest, that we'd be probably looking at.
That's what I wanted to hear, that it's gonna be a whole nother year before the public gets to vote on any changes that were initiated by the master plan work.
Yeah, I think it would be, assuming the master plan gets done next summer sometime, yeah, it would be that fall that we would be the first shot at really considering stuff.
I just put that out there just so I could hear it.
So, I guess this is maybe new business, but different topic than what's on the agenda. Do we have for this year any zoning amendment proposals that are before us, or that somebody thinks that ought to be on the ballot in March? Have we done anything this year that, I seem to, something in me, in the back of my head is saying that we like figured out something earlier and then earlier in the year and then put it aside for, save it for a public hearing for later. But maybe it was that was the rules of procedure or something like that. I don't know. But I don't know. Just, maybe it was the year before. I don't know.
There's a document that I think I might have in the zoning ordinance binder, if I can get that, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Permission. So that previous year, you have requested, I believe, Mr. Chairman, that a proposed change to zoning ordinance be listed. And number one I have here, add the requirement of carbon monoxide detectors. And number two, add buildable lot to the definitions page proposed by a member of the public.
Can you repeat the last one?
Sure, add buildable lot, quotes, to the definitions page as proposed by a member of the public.
Okay, so what was the first one? Carbon monoxide?
Add the requirement of carbon monoxide detectors.
So is that because we had something in the zoning where it said carbon dioxide detector or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It said something. It mentioned what, the old technology or something like that? It was,
It was like,
I think it was a misprint originally. I think it said CO2 instead of CO, but I'm not sure.
And did that member of the public suggest language for the definition of a building lot, or just that it ought to be defined?
No, just the suggestion that it should be defined.
Okay. We have to search electronically for
I was gonna say.
the carbon dioxide one. I'm sure it's in here somewhere, but. Okay, are there any other issues that, anyone's brought to you or that you thought of, clarifications, anything like that? Anything from we're about to talk about review of RSA changes, but anything from the RSAs that came into effect that we haven't addressed yet that we think we ought to? Do we want to attack? Last year there was talk of detached ADUs, and we tabled that. Is that something that we want to put on the ballot? Think about putting on the ballot?
Well, did we mention how long we would wait before we would bring that up? Or wouldn't that be something that the public could bring up?
The public can, I mean, the problem with the public doing it is that it may not be written in such a way that it's like, would be a good zoning change. Everyone may like detached ADUs, but maybe they just petition to have detached ADUs with no restrictions, right? Maybe there's some reasonable restrictions that there ought to be, right? If we write it, we have a chance at sort of covering more bases than somebody who hasn't really thought about land use or researched what happens in other towns. I mean, you didn't have certain restrictions or things like that, right? So,
Well, the single ADU has been around for a year, less than a year?
oh no, it's been our zoning for,
No, I'm sorry, the attached.
yeah, the attached, we've had, that got rewritten, it got rewritten, but it was in our zoning already. It had been for at least 10 years, at least 8 years, I think.
Okay, we changed it because the RSA changed.
Right, we changed the details of it, the parameters of it.
And at that point, we could have added
At any point, we could have added
detached,
detached.
but we decided not to. We decided to just let it ride and see, how people liked it.
Right.
Have you heard any complaints?
I don't talk to
I
me.
haven't heard anything from anybody.
But lots of towns do detached, and, like, somebody has a barn, they might want to build it out as a in-law suite for their parents or for themselves and make their kids live in that house or something, or, I don't know. Right, I think it gives, I personally think it gives people more options to use their land and their property. But I don't know that we want, for example, I don't know that we want everybody to be able to have an unlimited number of ADUs detached from the house. You might want to have some limit on it, or limit of number per acre, or number of acres you need in order to support an additional ADU, or, I don't know, I mean, anyway, it's a can of worms unless you think about it and like, put appropriate restriction on it. Or are we feeling lazy and we don't want to deal with it?
No, just still thinking about it.
Thoughts?
Not right now.
Okay.
I mean, the other thought was that we mentioned not bringing up our version of what to do with solar panels and wind generators because we wanted to do that work while we were working with the public on the master plan. could we just wind the ADU into that also, and then,
Sure. I mean,
That's exactly what I was thinking.
sure.
I mean, that's my opinion, that's it.
It seems sensible.
Mhm.
Sense? Can't do that.
I don't know. I mean, you know, when I think about it, it seems like a very artificial restriction that the ADU has to be attached, right? We allow more than one family unit to live on a property, but it has to be attached. And I understand that that means that you know, it makes it less likely that it's just a rental, right? Because they're in your face, right? They're right there living next to the primary owners, but I don't know, it seems restrictive. I mean, I'm not sure why we would tell somebody they couldn't build a little something for their kid or their parent or something like that and give them space. I mean, my situation, I've got an 18-year-old daughter who wants to live around here, is getting sick of living with her parents, and, you know, we're talking about putting up a house for her. I happen to own 2 lots, and so it's not, it doesn't, I wouldn't do it as an ADU, I don't think, right? I just put it on the other lot. She wants to be that far away anyway, but, so I'm not pushing it for me. I don't have any intent of doing an ADU, a detached ADU, but if I didn't, I'd be thinking about subdividing it, because I can't do a detached ADU, but I want my kid living nearby, but she doesn't want to live in the same house with us. So,
Well, it certainly sounds like we would most likely get a large amount of public comment in regards to that, looking at some of the concerns that I've heard in the past about people, you know, worrying about, you know, entire properties becoming, you know, with a bunch of houses on it. I mean, these are some of the fears, so I think it's a good idea to wait to review with the public, get those concerns and work that into it.
well, we could, I mean, that's one approach. I mean, another approach is you put a concrete plan in front of people on the ballot and they vote up or down. And if they voted down, you hopefully by then understand what they didn't like about it. Maybe you can tweak it, and even if they voted up, you may be like, oh, we think we should have that, but it should be different, right? And the next year you tweak it, right? So, going through the master plan process, I'm not sure we're going to get, you know, really concrete feedback from people, in, you know, that would allow us to like say, oh, this is exactly the restrictions we should have on detached ADUs. So now it seems like a few years ago it was I don't know if it made it onto the ballot, but it was talked about, and the fear mongering was that every single property was going to have a second building on it that was going to be like apartments with young families living in them, and we're going to have 1 million kids now in town, and it was going to be horrible. It was going to ruin the town.
That's not what you said.
That's not what I said. That's what sort of the, you know, the rumor mill and the, you know, fear mongering was. So, I mean, but that's a legitimate concern that we're going to change the nature of the town by having more opportunities for how people use their land, I suppose, right? So,
Reversely affect the tax base.
well, I mean, so if everyone built a second home on their property, then everyone, you know, their valuation would go up, and they'd be paying more tax. And if we're young families with lots of kids, then we know that more kids means more school taxes. So, yeah, just have to put a restriction. Nobody, you know, under age 18 is allowed in an ADU. I don't know.
One for property or something.
I don't know if there's like a, you know, 55 and older detached ADU thing we could do, but that's the way a lot of communities, you know, they structure their zoning so that they encourage, you know, older person communities and stuff like that. So to get the tax base without having the cost of kids. So I don't think we should do that, but. there are lots of communities that do that, so.
My final comment would be that Ossipee had come up, their planning board came up with, I believe, 2 different warrant articles. One would be attached, one would be detached, and then they let the people choose. And I do not remember what the outcome was.
Okay. I don't think most people here, if they could do detached, would run out and start building, because building is expensive. So, I don't think most people in town are rolling in dough, so.
No.
George?
Yes, so speaking of that last statement, one of the proposals that was brought up consistently was tiny houses.
Yeah, you've brought that up a number of times. So, we do have, our zoning has a,
Square footage.
yeah. It's over here. Page 1, on the bottom, permitted uses, A, farms and single-family dwellings with accessory buildings incidental thereto. Every dwelling shall have a minimum ground floor area of 864 square feet outside measurement. So I'm sure that 864 is some magic number that makes it so you can't do a mobile home or something like that.
I think you can do it, what do they call it, double wide? I think that's, I think that would pass, but
So a lot of tiny houses are on trailers, and I think they try to get around zoning by being a not a permanent structure. So whether we could figure out how to tailor something specifically to tiny homes on trailers, or whether, you know, any sort of RV or anything like that, whether it's a tiny home or an RV, you let people live in them. I don't know. But people don't seem to want permanent residents in RVs.
in, on the wheeled chassis that the tiny homes that we hear about are on. That's what you mean. When you say trailers, I mean, people
Yeah.
view the park model home or the tiny house as something that's on a trailer, which it's basically on the same type of frame.
It's just a home-built RV, basically, told me that.
And you said the cutoff date for the, was December, you said?
No, December is for the public petitioning.
January 11th?
January 11th is last day to post, if a second hearing is anticipated. I said previously, 22nd would be the last day for, if not, but 20, I'm sorry, I'm stuttering, I apologize. 25th is the last day to post and publish notice of a final public hearing.
So, but that doesn't leave a lot of time, right? If you want to do it through the planning board, we have the November meeting, the December meeting, and then really we have to feel like we're ready to go to public hearing at that point, unless we do extra meetings. The alternative is to do it as a petition warrant article, and then you have, what, December 10th or something like that. But you can do that, all that work on your own, as fast as you want. You don't have to like wait for public meetings and stuff. And when I say you, I mean anybody that wants to do it.
Mr. Chairman, there are other towns that are working on dealing with people that either are wanting to move into a town and they have this type of tiny house on frame. But I would like to look at what other towns have already done and what the ordinances that people are coming up with, because it is an international building code, so I'd like to see what that looks like Because obviously people are doing it, so I want to see what's already in place and how they're working it into zoning. So,
A lot of changes that have to happen. Something like that permanent goes in place. Your septic tank has to meet requirements and everything else. So,
Well, the ones that are on trailers are, a lot of them, oh, well, you can have a composting toilet and, you know, basically it's like an RV, right, or something, you know,
Yeah.
where you've got a tank you pump or something, right?
Yeah, unless you got a hookup on your own property for, like you got a family member with an RV, comes to your property every year or something to visit, you get your own hookup for them.
Yeah.
Either way.
the issue.
And, well, and one final thought of that, because they're on a trailer, they wouldn't need a building permit, right? They're sort of outside of zoning as far as the building itself. Whether we allow them to be used as a residence is what we'd be able to talk about as far as zoning, I think. Although we can probably put a size limit on that and things like that, but they don't need a building permit if they're on wheels.
But where they are mobile, there's a time limit on them that they can sit on the property, right? They can't.
We can decide how the property gets used. We the zoning thing, right, the zoning ordinance can decide how the property gets used.
Yeah, I was reading something the other day about RVs. You had a family member come up and they couldn't stay longer than so many months. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think it's 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
Less than that.
Yeah, Osprey has 14 days or 16 days, so their zoning is different.
I mean, I understand why people wouldn't want to drive around town and see just RVs parked everywhere and people living in RVs, but at the same time, if, you know, I mean, I don't know, I've got 78 acres and my property goes back more than half a mile from the road. It's like from the nearest road. And if I wanted to have somebody live in an RV back there, who would even know, right? Assuming that I'm dealing with the sewage properly and
Yeah.
everything, like, you know, I understand things near the road, people don't want to see it.
Yep.
But if it's screened, you know, by distance or whatever, I'm not sure why people should care what I'm doing on my property. Not that I have anyone living on my property, as far as I know, in your RV. Although I did have some people, I happened to be sitting out on my porch or in front of my house a couple of months ago, and I see people, somebody turns up the dirt road that by the cemetery by my house, goes back on my property. I'm like, what the hell? So I put my beer down and walk out there and pulling a tent out of the back of their car.
No way.
Yes. I'm like, you can't camp here. Sorry.
If you were in Scotland or Ireland, you would have invited them on your property and let them camp and sung songs to them and gave them food. They didn't do that?
No.
Jeez. But I would like to research this more and just bring my ideas back to the board, or perhaps someone will put a petition warrant article.
Yeah. My suggestion would be if you want to bring something to the board and have a chance of it getting on the ballot this year, the best thing to do is come with some proposed language, and rather than try to work with the board to come up with some proposed language. So, because that always takes longer. Any other thoughts? Anything else that was left over from last year we didn't get to aside from detached ADUs? I can barely remember last year, I don't know. Okay, well, I would suggest that if you think of anything else, bring it to the next meeting, because the time is short. Okay, anything else on that? Review of changes to the RSAs. Yeah, do you want to talk to this?
I had emailed the entire packet of RSAs that were changed, because it would be easier to just glance at the RSAs that made the changes to the land use planning, and then just go over them. Did everyone receive the email?
sent them out, but that was like 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah, I probably did.
Yeah, I can't remember 2 months ago.
Yeah.
I got it.
Well, we would all need that to discuss that, so you.
Was there anything that jumped out at you that you knew that we should be thinking about or talking about?
You know, all 50 RSAs are all important. So.
When you say RSAs, you mean the bill, the 50 bills?
The statutes that were either added or changed the existing statutes, they're all important. Now, we shouldn't be reviewing them at the end of the year, it's supposed to happen at the beginning. But I found it was so time consuming to go through all the changes and do them in bold and have a mirror of both of them. And it was good to do it like that, but it was just so time consuming. And for us to just sit down and review each individual RSA would be easier. So maybe we could do it next time. But I think we should all be here, and we should just real quickly go through it. We should be doing this in February. But I don't remember anything that jumped out at me.
Okay. Can I suggest that at the January meeting, you suggest that that be on the agenda for February?
Is there a reason why? Oh, you mean for next year's changes?
Yeah, you said it'd be better to do it in February.
Well, it'd be better to get to do them as soon as these books. We usually get these books arrive in March. So I thought we got this sometime in February or March. From Stratford Regional, we usually pay a certain amount, $10 a book. So it should be right after. So as soon as we get these books, that's when we should be looking at the changes. So it wouldn't be January, it'd be after that.
Right, best to get on the agenda.
Correct. So I'll mention that for next year. But maybe the next meeting we have in November, we could go over our packet. If it's emailed, then you just glance over it, at home, and then we just zip through them. It's not that much to do.
George, could you suggest that that be on the agenda for next month?
Yes.
Thank you.
And what I'll do is I'll contact the chair and make sure either a reminder email goes out to either, instead of us printing, well, I guess we can't force everybody to print their own stuff out, but to just come prepared or have it for them when they're here.
On a related topic, I know you guys are doing LSRs now. Have you heard of anything that we as a planning board should be up in arms about, or getting ready to go and testify, or
Are you
anything?
speaking about filed LSRs?
I think that's what I'm speaking about.
Legislative service requests. Yes, I have the list. Since an LSR does not give you the content, just the title, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to see what they're trying to do. I mean, you'd have to call. Right now, there's 690 bills right now, not related to planning, but total, so you have to go through them all. So I would not know what to bring. I would have to wait. The cutoff day to submit an LSR is September 20th. And then the end of October is when they have to be signed off. And that's when they'll be assigned a bill number, and then it goes to committee. So we still have time. Probably our next meeting, we should have bill numbers, and I'll know the internal workings of the planning and zoning type legislation that's comes through. And then if there's any committee hearings, it would happen after that anyway.
Okay.
Most likely in January, but there could be something right before that. But I'll get on that to see if there's anything we have to, testify on.
Thank you. Okay, anything else on that? Any other old business or new business?
It's old business.
Yeah, we're in old business now.
I have something.
Yeah.
The gravel pit inspections, can I be reminded what time I'm supposed to meet with Rick Surratt to do the inspection? Because I think that was set already.
No, so, according to the minutes in my memory, what was supposed to take place, I was supposed to send out a letter to the people, the owners of the gravel pits, and 2 days later, call them by phone, notifying them that within a short period of time, that they would be inspected. That wasn't done. They have not sent out. There's been a little bit of a problem that I ran into. I'm just trying to track it down concerning one of the gravel pits. I think that's changed hands as far as ownership. So I'm trying to figure that out right now. I did go on the digital system. It keeps track of that. I'm beginning to think that's not correct. So I have to confirm something's not adding up right.
Is it still showing the old owner?
Yes, but it could be that I'm assuming that that's changed hands when it hasn't.
I think maybe it hasn't yet.
Okay, thank you. So we're on
Right,
the same
because
page.
for the time the time they shake hands to the time it actually happens,
Okay,
there's a period of time there, right? So,
right.
um,
So I assumed it changed hands in the middle of summer, so. But, I mean, you may be more privy to information than I'm not.
I wasn't paying that close attention, quite frankly, when I was talking to him, but
So if there's, so there's three.
No, there's two.
There's two.
But one of them, if I'm right, one of them, the property owner, the old property owner, the one we previously contacted, is not the same property owner.
Well, would it behoove us, somebody use that word again, can we actually get the one done?
I think you
So-
both done. I mean,
Well, we have to make
you-
sure they're noticed, the other person.
Right, but if you call your next door neighbor and he says, I don't own it anymore, then call the new owner. If he still owns it, then you arrange it with him, right?
Okay, but we have rules of procedure that say that we're supposed
Right,
to send
so,
something out. that's all.
I mean, but I think that he's either gonna, if, I would say whoever you've got on your list, call him,
That's right.
send it to him, call him, and if he says, oh no, that, I don't own that anymore, then you call the new guy,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And to Ed's point, the one that's has not been for sale, could be just done and get out of the way, right?
Looking at the form.
I have here, in case anybody's interested, I have a copy of the letters with the no names on there.
That's appendix X.
Okay. So, George, do you think, when do you think that you will be able to kick that process off?
Within a week.
Okay.
I mean, that way it's not, freezing cold out. So we just to make sure we keep up on it.
It's beautiful around here in the winter, what are you talking about?
So you can see the ground.
It's overrated.
You know, it's gonna be snow on the ground soon.
Watch out for those drifts.
Do you have snowshoes?
Actually, I do.
Good. So you can go anywhere you want,
Okay.
any time of the year. You ready? Okay. Any other old business? You know, it's gonna come to your mind as soon as I say, move on, right? So, okay. Public comment? Member comments? Give you a
I
minute.
know, I just can't. What happens even down in Concord too? The chairman would be ready to put the hammer down, and I'm like, ugh. And they all look at me now. They do the same thing. They go, "Ugh."
about inspecting gravel pits. What is it? What's that all about? Because I don't understand it, I've never.
Well, to break it down, to
Absolutely.
break it down, there's a section in the statutes that say the planning board must go out and inspect and make sure that only so much of it's active, and that the parts that aren't active, how much vegetation has been restored, if it's in order, if there isn't just junk land all over the place, just simple stuff like that, just so it doesn't become.
So it's a land preservation kind of thing as well?
And managing erosion and runoff.
Managing
and-
erosion, yep.
Yeah,
I
but
got you,
they're not supposed to just open up 60 acres
I got you.
And just start
and
digging.
just be digging here and there, right?
Yep.
I mean, you could, but you would need a permit for it from the state at that point. So
Mhm.
it's just to maintain, so it just doesn't get out of control, that it's staying away from the road, that dirt isn't, with the erosion flowing into the road.
Excellent. Thank you.
And I think it's RSA 155 E. And it spells out everything in the RSA, what the planning board is responsible for.
If you're really interested, you could do an inspection too. Always looking for volunteers.
Take my trusty walking stick with me. As long as the bankings aren't too steep.
Okay. Anything else on that? Anything else? Final call.
I'll bring it up next week.
Okay, meeting adjourned.